There is a man sitting in a parked truck outside his own house. The engine is off, the headlights are off. He has been there 11 minutes, and if you ask him what he was doing, he could not tell you. His name is Harold, 41 years old. Inside that house are a woman who married him when he had nothing, and 2 children who still believe he is going to do the thing he told them he was going to do. 3 years ago, he started something, a small business built in the hours other men gave to television. One day he was going to walk into his supervisor's office and hand in the notice he had rehearsed 400 times. Tonight he will not walk into that house and announce that he is quitting. He will eat his dinner, answer his children's questions, and go to bed. But he quit about 6 weeks ago. There was no announcement, no collapse, only a Tuesday evening when he was tired, and he said to himself, quite reasonably, not tonight. And a week later, quite reasonably, the same. And somewhere in there, without ceremony, the thing died. Harold did not fail for lack of ability. He failed because he permitted a certain voice to keep speaking week after week until it had said the same thing so many times that it stopped sounding like a voice and started sounding like the truth. You know that voice. You heard it this week. It never introduces itself as the enemy that is the whole of its power. It does not tell you that you are weak. If it did, you would recognize it and throw it out of the house. Instead, it says, be reasonable. Now is not the time. There is no shame in being realistic. It speaks in your own voice, using your own good sense, and it has been winning arguments against you for years. So here is the question for the next half hour. What if the part of you that wants to quit is not weakness at all, but a patient, intelligent, well-mannered negotiator, and the reason it keeps winning is that you keep inviting it to the table? You will never win a debate against that part of yourself. Not by argument, not by discipline, not by waking one morning with your jaw set. You do not defeat it, you bury it. And burying it is a specific act, done in a specific way, and by the end of this you will know how. Here is what I have observed. I have spent much of my life studying men and women who accomplished remarkable things, and an equal portion studying those who did not. The 2 groups were not separated by talent or education or opportunity, though the ones who failed will tell you otherwise, and with great feeling. They were separated by what happened in a very small number of unremarkable moments. Not the crisis, not the day the loan was denied. Those days a man remembers and dresses up and tells about later. I mean the Tuesday evening, the moment when nothing dramatic occurred and a man simply set a thing down and did not pick it back up. Try to remember the day you gave up something you truly meant to do. You cannot. There was no such day. There was a slow leaving in which no single step was large enough to be called a betrayal. And when you noticed the thing was gone, it hardly hurt because the desire had already been drained out of it. That is not an accident. That is a mechanism, and it is working in you right now. It wears 3 coats, and you should know all 3. The first is reasonableness. A woman runs a small operation out of a spare bedroom, 2 years of slow growth, then 1 flat quarter. At the kitchen table, she tells her husband she needs to be realistic about this. Nobody at that table can argue against a virtue. 6 months later, the spare bedroom is a spare bedroom again, and if you asked her, she would say it did not work out, and she would believe it. But it did not fail. It was set down by a woman who mistook a flat quarter for a verdict. The second is the better plan. A man 4 semesters into night courses discovers a shorter program people are talking about. He researches it for 3 weeks, energized. He withdraws from the old one. He never enrolls in the new one. He did not find a better plan. He found an honorable exit. When brute force will not move you, that voice hands you a legitimate-sounding reason, gift-wrapped at the hour you are most tired, and you thank it. The third is the wait. Begin when the season passes, when the debt clears, when you feel ready. He has not quit, he would object to the word. But waiting is quitting with the paperwork left unsigned. It preserves your self-respect at the exact price of your life, and it can be maintained for 30 years. Now the cost, stated precisely because almost nobody names it correctly. The cost is not the unbuilt thing. Everyone assumes that and consoles themselves that it probably would not have worked. The cost of quitting is what it does to your capacity to desire. Every time you set a thing down, some portion of your ability to want is spent, withdrawn from the account. And the next time you reach for something, you reach with a slightly smaller hand. Do this 8 or 9 times across 2 decades, and you arrive at middle age in a peculiar condition. Nothing has gone badly wrong. You have no scars to point at. You simply cannot get excited about anything, and you conclude that this is maturity. It is not maturity. It is an empty account. Here is what most people never realize. They believe the danger is failure, so they build a life to avoid it, careful, hedged, 1 foot out the door of everything they enter. But failure has never yet destroyed a man who kept moving. It costs money, time, pride, all of which can be earned back. What destroys is the habit of releasing, and that habit is built quietly, in reasonable moments, by people who never once said the word quit out loud. So how does a man actually stop? Most picture a wall. You run, you hit something immovable, you stop. That picture is comforting because a wall is outside of you. But I almost never find a wall. What I find is a slope. You do not hit anything, you simply begin to go slightly downhill, and downhill feels like relief. A man can descend for years and never feel it because the ground under his feet looks perfectly level. The name for that slope is drifting. And the drifter is not lazy. Some of the busiest men I have known were drifters, up at 6, exhausted every night. A drifter is a man who has surrendered the right to decide and handed it to circumstance. You do not have to choose a direction in order to move. You only have to stop choosing, and the current will deliver you somewhere you never selected. It begins with indecision, not a wrong decision. A wrong decision can be corrected, and a man learns more in 6 months of wrong action than in 6 years of consideration. Indecision is the refusal to close a door. Left standing, it hardens into doubt because the mind cannot tolerate an open question and will begin supplying reasons why it cannot be answered, every one of them an argument against you. And doubt hardens into fear. Once it is fear, it stops arguing altogether. Fear does not debate. It simply makes the laptop hard to open and the phone call physically heavy, and you avoid the feeling without ever consciously deciding to. That chain can only be broken at the first link, which is why the man who wakes up determined on Monday is finished by Thursday. He attacked the third link with tools that only work on the first. Think of something you have been meaning to decide, not do, decide. Something you have turned over for months while telling yourself you are gathering information. Have you learned one new thing about it in 30 days? You have not. The circling feels like diligence, and it is the first link being forged around your ankle while you watch. None of that explains why a good mind, capable of enormous effort, reaches for the exit at all. Here is the answer, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. The mind cannot comfortably hold a large gap between what it desires and what it possesses. That gap creates real tension, and the mind, which is above all a device for reducing discomfort, works continuously to close it. There are exactly 2 ways. The first is to raise your circumstances up to meet your desire. That is achievement. It is slow, uncertain, takes years, and demands you tolerate the tension the entire time. The second is to lower your desire down to meet your circumstances. That one is instantaneous, free, requires no plan, no capital, no cooperation, and produces immediate, genuine relief. Your mind is not choosing between success and failure. It is choosing between 2 methods of relieving pressure, and one costs 20 years, and the other costs nothing and works tonight. Given those terms, the astonishing thing is not that people quit. It is that anyone ever does not. I want to tell you about 2 men, and I want you to pay closer attention to this than to anything else I say. A man caught the gold fever and went west to dig. He staked a claim and struck ore, real ore, good ore. He covered the find, went home, raised money from relatives and neighbors, and brought in machinery. The first car of ore was refined, and the return showed one of the richest finds in that part of the country. A few more cars would clear the debts. After that, everything was profit. And then the vein stopped. They drilled. They followed it where it should have gone. They went down, nothing. The gold had simply ended. So they sold the machinery to a junk man for a few $100s. got on the train and went home. The junk man did something they had not done. He hired an engineer to survey the mine. And the engineer told him those men had failed because they did not understand fault lines, that the vein had not ended at all. It had shifted the way veins do. He told him where to dig. The gold was 3 feet from where they stopped. 3 feet. Not 300 feet. Not 3 years. One honest afternoon's work by men who had already spent months and thousands of dollars and every relationship they had, and who were, at the moment they set down their tools, closer to the thing they wanted than they had ever been in their lives. And here is the detail that ought to keep you awake tonight. They felt certain. They were not confused. They had evidence the vein was gone. They had drilled it. They had looked. Their conclusion was reasonable, supported by every fact in front of them, and completely wrong. The moment before a vein resumes looks identical to the moment a vein has truly ended. There is no signal. Nothing in the situation itself will tell you which one you are standing in, which means that if you decide to stop based on how it looks, you are flipping a coin and calling it judgment. Now, what became of the man who quit that mine? He went into insurance and became remarkable at it. And he said afterward that he owed all of it to the mine, because he had learned that when a man tells you no, it may not mean no. It may mean the vein has shifted. He made it a fixed rule that he would never again stop 3 feet short of anything. He lost a fortune in gold and acquired something more valuable, the knowledge in his body and not merely in his head of what it cost to stop early. Every adversity carries within it the seed of an equivalent benefit, but the seed does not sprout because you had a bad experience. It sprouts because you went back into the wreckage and dug out the principle. Same failure. 2 completely different lives. Said another man beside him. The inventor who set out to produce light from electricity ran something on the order of 10,000 experiments that failed. At 3 a day without a Sunday off, that is 9 years of walking into a room where the last thing you did failed, and the thing before that failed, with no evidence anywhere on earth that the thing is even possible. At experiment 4,000, his situation looked exactly like that mine. It looked like a reasonable man ought to stop. And there were decent, intelligent people who loved him, telling him it was time to be realistic. He did not stop, and not because he was more stubborn, because he had settled the question in advance. He had decided before he began that he was going to have electric light. That was fixed. It was not up for review on a difficult evening. Only the method remained open, so every failed experiment was not evidence against the aim. It was information about the method. That makes failure impossible to interpret as defeat. 10,000 failures could not touch him, because his aim was never the thing being tested. One man's purpose was fixed, and his plans were flexible. The other man's purpose was flexible, and so his plans had nothing to hold on to. Now, I must be honest about why this is hard, and it is not hard in the sense of requiring effort. You work hard at a dozen things you do not care about. The resistance is made of protection, and it is protecting something you will not want to look at. As long as you have not finished, you cannot be measured. The manuscript in the drawer cannot be rejected because no one has seen it. The business never fully attempted cannot be judged because the attempt was never fully made. The man who is going to start something someday holds a position of infinite potential. And potential is a magnificent place to live, because nothing there has ever been weighed. So that voice is not trying to make you comfortable. It has a far more serious assignment to prevent you from acquiring information about yourself that you might not survive. It is not lazy. It is a bodyguard, and it believes it is saving your life. Fear of criticism has destroyed more capable people than fear of poverty ever did. A man will carry debt, work in the cold, take the hard route, all of it, rather than stand in a room of people who heard him say what he was going to do and now know he did not. So he arranges never to be in that room. He keeps the ambition small enough that failing at it would be invisible and calls that sensible. He is not avoiding failure. He is avoiding witnesses. But here's what changes everything. You cannot win that argument because the voice is not separate from you. It has your intelligence. Everything you know it knows. When you build a case for continuing, it builds the counter case out of the same materials, in the same voice, with full access to your fatigue and your history. You are not debating an opponent. You are debating a mirror, and a mirror cannot be defeated. It can only be denied a room to stand in. You do not overcome the desire to quit. You render it inoperative by removing its options in advance while you are strong, so that when you are weak, there is nothing left for it to choose. That is what bearing it means. Not killing it, it will be with you at 80. It means putting it somewhere it cannot reach the controls, and it is always done in advance. The decision that saves you is never made in the moment of temptation. In that moment you have already lost and simply have not been told yet. It was made months earlier, on a good day, when you closed a door you knew you would later want to open. You know the commander who brought his men across the ocean to a coast where they were badly outnumbered and ordered the ships burned. Consider what that actually accomplished. It did not make his men braver or improve their odds by one man. It removed the second method of closing the gap. Before the ships burned, every soldier had two ways to relieve his fear: win or go home. On a bad night, the mind reaches for the cheaper of the two automatically, and no speech from any commander stops it reaching. Afterward, there was one way. The cheap exit was not defeated in argument. It was removed from the world. Most people have this backwards. They believe the strong man resists temptation. He does not. The strong man arranged his affairs months ago so the temptation would not be available at the hour he would have said yes. One is fighting daily battles and losing a percentage of them. The other is not fighting at all. So here is what you do. Not someday, this week, with the life you presently have. Put your aim in writing, in your own hand, with a date. One sentence what you intend to have and by when, not typed. A vague aim cannot be pursued and cannot be failed, which is precisely why people keep theirs vague. Read it aloud morning and night. I know how that sounds. Do it anyway. The mind does not distinguish carefully between what is true and what it has heard 10,000 times, and you may as well use that in your own favor for once. Decide now what defeat means and what it does not. Write the conditions. I will stop if X occurs by Y date. Then write what does not qualify: a bad quarter, a rejection, a week of exhaustion, someone whose opinion you value telling you it will not work. You are writing the terms of surrender before the battle. When the hard night comes, you do not get to renegotiate, you consult the paper. The man who wrote it knew more than the man reading it because he was not tired. Burn one ship. One retreat, made expensive to use. Tell 4 people what you are doing and when it will be done. Pay in full instead of monthly. Give the notice. Send the work to the one person whose opinion you have been avoiding. Do not burn all of them at once. That is theater, and it ends in panic. After the first one, you will notice your thinking change. When the exit is gone, the mind stops spending energy evaluating the exit. You have been paying for that door to stay open every day, and you did not know you were being billed. Hold the aim fixed and the plan loose. Nearly everyone does this backwards. They hold a plan long after it stops working, then conclude the aim was wrong. Your plan is a hypothesis. It is supposed to fail. That is how you find the working one. When it fails, you have not been defeated. You have been informed. But the aim is not a hypothesis, and it does not get reviewed on a bad day. Make it small enough that it cannot fail. 30 minutes, same time, every day, small enough that no honest circumstance in your life can prevent it, which removes every excuse in advance. And when you miss, the rule is never miss twice. 1 miss is an event, 2 is a pattern, and the pattern is what kills you. Now the objection you are forming, because I would form it too. What if it really is time to stop? Sometimes it is. Veins do end. Some things ought to be set down, and setting them down is judgment, not weakness. Here is the test, and it is reliable. Never make the decision on a bad day. The impulse to quit arrives almost exclusively when you are tired or rejected or short of money. That impulse is not analysis. It is your nervous system asking for relief, wearing the costume of a strategic decision. So make the rule. No aim is reviewed on a day when I am tired or within 72 hours of a disappointment. And you may verify this in your own life. Almost nobody ever quits on a good morning. Almost every abandonment in history was signed at 11 at night by an exhausted person who felt certain. Let me take you back to the truck. Harold does not know that he is 3 feet from the vein. Not because his business is about to succeed. I have no idea whether it is, and neither does he. That is the point. He has not drilled the last honest afternoon. The information does not exist yet. The verdict he has already passed on himself was passed with the evidence still in the ground. And the tragedy is not that he will fail. It is that he will never find out. In 4 years, he will have a light, self-deprecating way of mentioning it at parties. And he will not feel anything when he says it. And the not feeling is the whole cost. You are Harold in some corner of your life. You know which corner. It surfaced early in this, and you have been thinking about it ever since. The part of you that wants to quit does not need to be defeated. It needs to be denied a vote, and you take away its vote on a good day in advance, in writing, by removing the exits while you are still strong enough to remove them. Every arrangement I have given you is a variation on that one act. Not more discipline, not more feeling, fewer doors. Tonight, not tomorrow, not Monday before you sleep, take a piece of paper. Write one sentence, what you intend to have, and the date by which you intend to have it. Sign it. Underneath, write the sentence that will govern you when the hard night comes. I will not decide to stop on a day when I am tired. Put it where you will see it in the morning, 90 seconds. And it is not a small thing, because tonight, while you are clear, you will have taken the vote away from the man who will be sitting in that truck. You have quit before. So has everyone who ever did anything. That is not the question in front of you. The question is whether you will keep handing the drill to the man who is tired, bury him tonight, and go find the 3 feet.